All right. So you spent 3 weeks with a buyer, and then after you show them 10, 20, 30 houses, they end up telling you they went with another agent. Or you worked so hard on a deal and then it ends up falling apart. Or you go on a listing appointment and then they tell you they went with another agent. Today, what we're going to talk about is how to deal with transactions that fall apart and also how clients also end up ghosting you or deals that fall apart or maybe small failures in a real estate transaction. Good morning, Sharif. How you doing today?
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Good, good. So one of the things that I remember when I first started, and I think it was my first or second year, I lost a deal that I was working very hard on, and I was extremely upset. It took me a while to recover from that. And we were part of a coaching community, and I was talking about this, and they were like, if you haven't lost a listing or a deal yet, you probably just haven't done enough real estate altogether. And it just becomes part of the business and part of the nature of this business. You're not going to win every client. You're not going to win every listing appointment or even every listing. So, based on your experience, Sharif, how do you deal with certain things like this? And what do you advise agents to do overall?
When you're working with a client, a deal falls through or they choose someone else, that just proves to you that your pipeline's not full enough, right? So usually when you're affected by a transaction falling apart or a client going with a different agent, it's because that you're just not talking to enough people, right? Usually those things bother you more when you have less on the table. So my key thing is just keep prospecting. Every time I have something fall apart, that just pushes me to get two or three more, deals together. So we can afford the fact that things are going to fall apart.
100%. And that's one of the things that I was coached on very early on is they told me the only thing you can control is to get five more listings or five more buyers. And because it's inevitable, you're going to lose deals, you're going to lose transactions. And some things are going to be out of your control. And guess what? Sometimes the clients will blame you, even if it's not your fault. And there's so much you can do at this point, and when we're talking about the customer service industry as in general, I've worked in hospitality most of my life. When I first started, my first job ever when I was 13 or 14 was in hospitality, and then I continued to serve and bartend. And no matter what you do, people will still try to find something to complain about, no matter how good the service is. And it could be that they want something for free, or it's just that they just want to blame somebody, and it ends up being us, right? So it's gonna happen. If it hasn't happened, it will happen. But that's the biggest thing is like we gotta always ask ourselves, like the first question that I typically ask, is it me? Right? I want to make sure that I didn't do anything wrong, and if they allow you to answer this question, is to see how you could have done better to service them, right? Taking it personally and finding out what if it's them or if it's the market, whatever the case is, what was it that you were expecting from me to do that I didn't do? And let's talk about that. Some people are going to be willing to give you that feedback, and some people are not going to give you that feedback. But I've had two deals recently that I've gone through the same thing, and gladly, I mean, fortunately, I was able to save them because I asked that specific question. And one of them was saying, I was expecting more communication from you. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we were communicating by email and I thought that was your preferred method. She was like, no, I prefer actually phone calls, right? So I learned from that and I was like, okay, well, next time I got to make sure, like, what is your preferred method of communication versus just because she was emailing me all the time. And I knew she was going through a lot. Her mother was going through cancer. And I was like, I totally understand that you have a lot on your plate right now, and I can't even imagine what you're going through. And look, I take responsibility of this and it's my fault. I understand if you want to end the relationship, but give me a chance to make it right for you. And she thanked me a lot for this, even though she wanted to terminate the whole listing. And now we're under contract and the relationship is so much better than before. But all it came down to is me asking that specific question and also empathizing with her about the situation that she's going through, because a lot of times we don't know what the other person is going through, and we end up just assuming that they just want to fire us, or they're unreasonable, whatever the case is. What do you think about that, Sharif?
No, I think that's true. And really, losing deals is not the problem in itself. It's really the meaning that you attach to the loss of that problem, right? That's the problem itself. It's the meaning that you attach to the loss. And if we break it down, there are really two conversations that happen in every loss, right? The external conversation, like you're talking about, it's like what happened, like what actually happened, what were the facts, and what could be improved, right? But then you have this internal conversation with yourself, and it's you talking to yourself saying, well, what does this say about me? Right? Am I good enough? And do I belong here? Or how will this reflect on the next person that might know them? Right? So most agents skip right to the internal. Like, what did I do wrong? Take the blame, figure out internally, how does this affect, your life and how does this affect your future business? But you didn't just lose the deal, you started rewriting who you are, right? So you really have to focus in on the deal itself, what you could do to make it better the next time around, what actually worked out and what didn't work in a transaction, and what you can do differently the next go. So that's really something that you need to focus on as the deal itself and not internally on yourself, because it's not your fault, right? And there's no problems, there's just learning experiences, right? There's no deals falling apart. It was a lesson learned, right? And that makes you better for the next time around. So if you look at it with that mindset, it makes swallowing that large pill a lot easier.
I agree. And I think a lot of times too, real estate agents count their money before they receive it. And that causes the loss to be even worse because they're depending so much on that commission that they didn't even make yet. They start counting the money that they don't have or the commission that they don't have. And then they start planning their life around that and maybe future vacations, maybe future things that they're going to buy. And then when they lose that money, then it makes it more difficult to recoup from that loss. And the real cost is not the commission that you didn't make. It's the commission that you won't make because who you decided you're going to be and how long it's going to take you to recover from that. So, this is not easy to do, but it does come from experience and it comes from a lot of losses that you hit, right? You go through. It's like almost going to the gym. When you don't work out for a very long time, and you go to the gym, your muscles are going to be very, very sore and it's going to take you a lot of time to recover. But when you're doing business all the time, or if you're working out all the time, let's say in the same example, like you're recovering a lot quicker and it's not going to hurt as much when you're sore. And it's the same thing goes when we're talking about losses in real estate. When you've lost a lot of transactions or maybe clients, and you know, it's when I'm not talking. When we're talking about a lot, it's a comparison to how many deals we actually close. So I know you've closed over 170 transactions last year. So I'm sure you've lost maybe like 5 to 10% of those, but that's, anywhere from 8 to 20 transactions that you probably would have lost or your team has lost compared to somebody else that only closes maybe 10 deals a year. That one transaction is going to feel a lot harder to recover from. But it's about how quickly can you bounce back so you don't affect your whole business going forward.
True. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head, counting your eggs before they hatch is something, problem that most agents have, right? And the real loss is not in the commission itself. It really comes down to the hesitation on your next appointment because of that, right? Or the lower confidence that you have in future negotiations, or just playing small without even realizing it, right? Because now you're limiting yourself because of past, issues that you had or past transactions that fell apart, and you're overcorrecting at that point, right? And really the biggest loss isn't what you lost. It's what's going to stop you from going after the next opportunity. So it's not really what's on the table. Remember, everything that you lose on the table is a lesson, right? It's a lesson learned, but you shouldn't let that affect your next opportunities, right? The next time you're on appointment, the next time you're negotiating a deal, and just really not playing as big as you usually play because you're toning it down because of certain losses that you had in the past. So really, it's not about the commission itself. It's about figuring out how this loss can make you better.
Agreed. So let's talk really quickly about the three losses that most people will go through, right? So number one, a loss of listing that maybe you went on an appointment with didn't work out. You did all the work, the CMA, you were prepared, and then they end up choosing someone else. What do you do in this scenario, Sharif?
I mean, I normally would send them a message or it's either a text or an email. And I kind of ask them, like, in order for me to improve myself, to make sure that I'm providing the best service for my next client, would you mind sharing why you decided to choose another agent besides myself? I mean, historically speaking, I mean, religiously, I usually send it out and I lose a lot of listings, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I win a lot of listings, right? I probably lose more than I get.
Same.
That's the sad
Yeah.
part. Oh, and you're right. Like we've been told in the past, if you have 100%, capture rate and sign rate for your listing appointments, you're not going on enough listings, right? And I can tell you personally, like I go over 300 a year and I probably sign like a third of them, right? So you got to remember there's two-thirds of them, at least 200 listing appointments that I'm going to that I'm not getting. Right. And I use that as opportunities to tweak my presentation because that's fixable. Right. And it's usually down to how I'm presenting things, my body language, my tone, the price, the price of the home. Maybe we weren't seeing eye to eye, me and the seller themselves, but that might not be fixable. And look at it as you dodged a bad listing, right? And then really relationships are the real growth opportunity. So that's really what you need to work on. Is figuring out how you can relate more with the people. Like as a real estate agent, you'll notice as you develop and as you start to get better, it's not like you're getting, stronger with real estate. You're just getting better at reading people and understanding how to talk to people. So that's really what the struggle is. Some people have is, when you lose a listing or something happens and goes wrong, it's a relationship thing. You got to build on that relationship with other people then, and just understand that things are fixable, right? They're all opportunities for you to figure out what you could tweak to be better the next time around.
Totally agree. And I know you do something, and I'm sure you still do it, is that, if they allow it, also you record the whole conversation to your device where you can generate AI notes from it, right? And I think that's something a lot of people should be doing. Obviously, depending on your state, if that's allowed or not, if you have to get consent or if you don't, you should be recording those listing appointments, not video, just at least voice, and take that and revisit it and listen to your tone, at least, how you're coming off and what objections that you handled. And, just through playing back that tape, you might be surprised and you might tell yourself, oh, I should have not said this. I should have said this better. And just take that stuff and put it into AI. Like they're all MLM models there that, either Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and have it analyze your listing presentation script and what you did right and what you did wrong and what you can improve on.
Yeah, that's definitely, and that's your first loss, right? It's losing a listing, right? Another loss could be just losing a transaction, right? Like a transaction falls apart, and this is after like you obtain the listing, and you're on the market, you found a buyer, and the transaction falls apart, and this one hurts a little bit more, I think. Is because you're already focused on the fact that you had it, right? You were just coasting along, you had that. It wasn't you're trying to win a listing or win a buyer over, it's actually you're in the process of taking them to the finish line and you had it, like, but it fell apart, right? And again, it goes back to counting commissions, that's part of it, right? You already had counted commissions and told people that it was closing and then it's gone, poof,
Yeah,
it's gone. So, really you got to think about there's certain things that you can control, there's certain things you can't control, right? And you can't control the financing, right? You can't control buyers panicking, right? It's human behavior and you can't control title issues or even an HOA, right? You can't control these things. And you have to understand that, you can only control your controllables. And that's really how you present yourself, your tone, what words you choose in conversation, but really it's how you react to a lost transaction as well. Right. And I know it hurts and stings a little bit more because it was in the bag. Like we had this one, right? and it was something external that we couldn't control. But you just got to get over it, right? And just know that you got to prospect a little bit more and don't take it personally.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Just and revisit if there's anything that's not in your control, then don't sweat it. Some things happen that you can't do, but just make sure that you figure out if there were anything in your control to make sure that it gets done properly next time. If it's a process issue or if it's a transaction issue that maybe the transaction team should do better on communication, making sure like things that came up later on in the transaction that caused deal to fall apart? Was there any way that we could have found this and discussed this early on before we get through the deal to make sure that we tackle those problems early on? So that these are some of the things that we always look into because it is hard, right? And it affects all of us and affects your team members, affects you. And essentially when you're a team leader too, you're carrying a lot of the burden that a lot of your team members go through because their mindset is not right, and you want to make sure that their mindset is correct too, because that's going to affect how they're going to do business. And I'll tell you, like, the most successful people usually end up bouncing back a lot quicker, and you got to learn how to bounce back quick from those failures. So yeah, let's dive into loss number 3, which is a ghosted relationship. So this is a buyer that you invested time with, showed them so many homes, and then they end up going with somebody else. How do you do that? How do you talk about that, or how do you, um, I guess, deal with that, Sharif?
I mean, it's always a learning experience, right? Stay professional, basically, you want to question what you did, right? Like, differently this time around, right? What could you do in the future to see that it won't happen again, right? Kind of analyze the process itself. But unfortunately, people are going to do that, right? And it really comes down to building of relationships. Like, did you really build that relationship completely? Or did you just think of it as a transaction itself, right? And we actually we tackled this a little bit in our team meeting yesterday, reviewing some role play from earlier in the week. And one of our teammates spoke to another teammate saying, "Hey, you were doing great. You went down the script, but you got to throw a little color into the conversation to build that relationship, right? You can't just ask questions going down like the LP Mama script. Like, when you get to the point of motivation, let's talk to them about why they're motivated. What is their motivation, right? Are they looking to move? Are they downsizing? Great. Let's talk to them about downsizing. Let's talk to them what they think, why they think their home is too large, right? Let's try to build a little bit more of a relationship than just looking at it as a straight transaction. And that's where you start to, find yourself actually growing. And that's how you should be dealing with it if someone ghosts you, right? Figure out what you said wrong. I mean, we have the luxury of where, just like you said, Peter, like our listening appointments recording it, but we also have our calls recorded, right? And text messages all available within our CRM system. So we're able to go back, read AI notes, listen to ourselves, see what we might have said that last time around that caused them to ghost you, or what you didn't say, right? Maybe it was something that you didn't mention that they wanted to hear, right? So it's always about analyzing it and just seeing how you can put your best foot forward the next time.
No, I totally agree. It's one of those things where you know, you don't want to take it too personal, of course, and just make sure that you look at the past history. And again, like if you're able to get them on the phone and ask for feedback, that's always great. But again, it just goes back to there's an identity protocol that we want to make sure that we use to protect our mindset from letting this get to us. So number one is separating the event from the evidence. A lot of times, when we get a single loss, this is an event. This is not an evidence of who you are, because some people take that personally and they would start blaming themselves a lot too much to the point where it causes them to be less confident in the future or not capable of doing whatever it is that they want to do. So evidence requires patterns. One lost listing or one lost client is not a pattern, right? It's going to happen and that you cannot avoid it. It's just one of those things. Like, look at any high level athlete or any high level team. Do you think they win every single game? No, then it wouldn't be a game and it wouldn't even be fun, right? Like, they have to go through losses, and that's what makes the excitement of the sport. Like, there is no team that won and never had a loss ever in history, and that's the whole idea. And you gotta take that in consideration. It's just that we want to make sure that we're winning more than we're losing, and we want to increase the percentages of winning than losing. But it's never going to be 100% win.
No, it's totally true. If you're winning at 100%, you're really not trying enough, right? And it really comes down to you getting uncomfortable a little bit more. And it's so true. It's like, one loss doesn't create a pattern. And you said it, you hit the nail on the head right there, right? And you really have to focus on that fact that it's not going to mold you, right? It's not going to shape you to be a new person, right? It's just you're going to take that loss and it's going to make you a little bit better for the next time around. And once you get into that mindset, there's no true losses out there. There's just learning experiences like we keep saying. And you're just going to keep getting better and better, but you have to get uncomfortable. You need those losses. Like, it might be a little far fetched, but we did a recent broker change. And honestly, we did it because there was no more challenges left at the brokerage, right? We were the top agents of the month for like 36 months straight. It was like it didn't make sense anymore, right? So, although it's a little bit, far-fetched of an analogy, but that was kind of it, right? Like we needed to step out of our comfort zone and get uncomfortable again and start to see losses again so that we can build on it and grow. So, that's really, the steps that we took, and it happens every day, right? And you really have to separate the event from your identity.
So true. I mean, yeah, success is not a straight line going up all the time. It's gonna have dips in between. So you're gonna go up and down. But that's the whole that's success. There is no successful person that went straight line into success and never had any dips in their business. We all go through it. It's gonna be one of the things that you need to obviously make sure that is part of the business and not dwell on it too much. Step two, when we're dealing with losses, is make sure that we debrief fast and clean, right? So give yourself a time limit because that's the most important part. What is the time limit that you're going to allow yourself to dwell on the situation and then move forward, right? Some of the things that I usually like to do is, when this happens, I write it down. What happened? What was in my control? And what am I going to do differently next time? Put that in a notebook. Then once you write that down, close the notebook and just keep going, and that's it. A lot of times, and I do like journaling, and I do it a lot too, also on my notebook app. And I also have a notebook that when I go through challenges like this, writing it down does help take it off my mind a lot and just makes me go forward. What do you do, Sharif? I guess to deal with these things.
I cry. No, it's definitely you have to limit the time. You can't dwell on it. I'll find myself that I'll start to not think about it as much as the time progresses. But unless you limit, and say, okay, this is the deadline, I need to push forward and I need to start filling my mind up with other things that are more productive, right? So that's what I do. I try to focus on the productive aspect of the business and see where I can tweak and make things better. But also, you got to put it away, get rid of it. Let's go. Let's move forward, right? Because in reality, what did you truly lose? Right? It was a possibility. It wasn't anything that was really there. And you really got to get over it. That's just part of life.
I agree. I agree. And it's one of those things too, also like step three, when you're dealing with it, you just got to make sure that you return your evidence to your evidence baseline. So if you're still having a hard time with it, go back and look at other closed transactions and great reviews that you had from clients that raved about your services. And that's going to help you remember all the great relationships you've built, all the great closings you've done, because that's going to help bring you back up. Even if you're able to read a few good reviews from the past or testimonials, or maybe just a transaction that you've gone through, just going back to those closed transactions and what difficult situations did you accomplish, where the family is happy because they used you and they raved about you and even referred you to other people, right? That's going to help bring back your confidence in doing this business really well, and it gets you back to baseline.
Yeah, definitely. And don't wait to feel better, right? You just gotta hit the pavement and keep going, right? But you're right. Your brain's gonna start to lie to you and you're gonna start to get in your own head, right? So sometimes going back to the evidence of truth, right? Going back to those reviews, going back to the clients that actually find you worthy, right? Not ghosting you or trying to, fire you because something didn't go wrong in a transaction. I mean, those are things that you can't control, but just move forward, right? Don't wait to feel better. You got to take action in your life, and then the things that you're doing to actually counteract what negatively happened will start to take over now, right? And you'll start to feel better by doing those things and starting to forget about the other. So go back, start making calls, booking appointments, get back into the arena, right? Get back into the game. Like I said, like I go back to prospecting knowing that if I lost a deal, I need to find three more,
Yep.
right? That's really my mentality, and that's what you gotta do. You just gotta put, like, the pedal to the metal and feet on the ground and just move forward and don't get in your own way.
Yeah, I think people that are less busy too, that's gonna cause them to think about these losses a lot more. But like if you're really busy and you have a lot of things to do and you know what your schedule should look like, you really shouldn't have a lot of time to think about the losses because you have no time to think about losses. You have no time to waste. So you just got to get back up there and just you know that you have so much other things to worry about at this point. This one thing is not going to end up causing you an issue. And look, sometimes like you said before, Sharif, sometimes it's probably better that you lost a client like this, because, they could be a pain and like you would have even had to work even harder for them and nothing will happen. Like if you lost a listing and the listing appointment because it was overpriced, you probably should be thankful. You should be thankful that you didn't take this listing because now you didn't have to spend money on marketing and time on dealing with a seller that's unreasonable and wants an update every single day about why their listing is not moving, right? So some of these things, sometimes it is an opportunity for us to be thankful for because it would have caused us more issues down the road too.
No, it's so true. And that one deal doesn't define you as an agent, right? And really, top producers, what they do is they remove themselves from the situation and kind of look at things at a 12-month to 24-month like cycle, right? And when you start focusing on that one deal, you start to have that scarcity mindset, which is going to be the wrong mindset to have in this business, right? I mean, I know you preach on this, Peter. So, you really start to have that and, stop having that scarcity thinking, right? Don't start chasing bad leads. Don't panic when you adjust pricing and don't lower standards. These are all facts. So just remember that top producers don't do that, right? They always have like a pipeline that they're working on. They're always going back to that. And really, you got to separate identity from income, right? Income fluctuates when identity stays stable, right? So you want your identity to stay stable and you're going to know your income is going to fluctuate. Look, you're going to have closed transactions, you're going to have transactions that fall apart. You're going to have people that sign listings, you're going to have people that ghost you. That's just part of the business. And you have to understand that, right? And the more that you're losing, that's probably because you're doing a lot more. And if you're not doing enough, you're not going to see enough losses. And you really have to understand that part too. The more that you do, the more chance you have to lose as well.
I totally agree. And this is the difference again, like, and just like you said, Sharif, it's the mindset. Like, and I have an agent that just started with us recently, and he's, almost done with his psychology degree and he's doing this full time. He's got a couple of classes here and there. But I love his mindset, and I think because he just knows psychology so well, he texted me yesterday, and he usually does every time, like, let's say a deal doesn't go through or a client ends up going. He texted me yesterday, literally this, and I'm reading it right now. He says, lesson of the day, do not rush the process. So I told him, tell me more. He's like, I had a client that came into an open house browsing for two bed, and we talked for a half hour. She's not in a rush, but she kept on highlighting that she had enough with the train noise and music blasting from her neighbors. And one critical point I should have worked on is after listening, understanding, and acknowledging, and the convo with the next steps, which he didn't do. This is a great example of somebody that understands what they need to do if they don't get, like, let's say the next steps, right? He's trying to learn and he's internalizing what could have happened and could have done better, right? So it's very relatable to this conversation because instead of you blaming the client, oh, this client was a waste of time, because we do have those agents too that come and say this on the huddle. Oh my God, I had this client that was just a waste of time. I've showed them multiple houses. They said they're not ready. I'm not calling them again because they're just not serious. But instead, like this person took it as a lesson and say, how can I learn from this and what could I have done better? And that should be every time, right? So it's just a great example that I think a lot of you should also think about. And that's why, like Sharif said, we preach mindset a lot. And because I think this business is 80% mindset and 20% skills and action. Because if your mindset is not right, you're not going to be able to go and do the action that's required to be successful in the business.
Yeah, and you have to understand the losses are part of the business,
Yeah.
right? And really the difference is not who loses less. It's about who recovers faster.
Yes.
All right. So it's not who loses less, it's who's recovering faster.
So
Right.
good.
So that's the difference between a top producer and just a regular agent.
Yeah.
They both could be going through the same exact loss, but that top producer is already working on the next project, the next client, the next task, where the other agent, the one that's dwelling about it, is struggling, right? Because they're not recovering as fast. So, and I tell people, it's like you're going to hit problems. It's not about hitting the problems, it's how you react to those problems. So that's what defines you as a person, right? So
I
don't
agree.
let that event write your story, right? Protect your identity like it's your most valuable asset because it is, right? That's
Yeah.
that's what you got is your identity and time. That's it. So just take that into account and just know that you're going to have losses. You just got to react quicker.
Yeah. And one last thing I think we probably should end with today because everybody compares themselves to other people, especially on social media. And all they see is the highlight reel of somebody else's success all the time. And nobody talks about losses, right? So do not think because everybody's just celebrating their successes, listings listed, homes sold, and all these wins and successes, that doesn't mean that they haven't gone through a lot of losses. And I think we should be talking about losses sometimes also out loud. It doesn't have to be social media if you're not comfortable with it, but share it with your team, share it with a mentor, a friend that actually knows and gone through similar business losses, right? But I don't think it's relatable to talk to somebody about it that doesn't even know the business. But if you're talking about it and being vulnerable about it too, it makes it a lot easier. And then just make sure that you have that support system to get you back up to speed where you're supposed to. Don't take those losses and dwell on it too much internally. That causes your mindset to get screwed up. Talk to us, give us a call, reach out to us, send us a DM, send us an email. We're more than happy to walk you through this so we can tell you our experiences and how we've dealt with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're always open to sharing and hearing anyone out. And sometimes that's all it really takes, right? Just opening up and talking to someone about it, getting it out, and then moving on to the next project, right? And that's what we really want to focus on is that, with the positive, you're going to get negative. With the wins, you're going to get losses, right? With the good, you're going to get bad. It's simple yin and yang. It's you're going to have one with the other. So just prepare for that and just get past it quickly. That's all you gotta do.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sharif. And guys, as you know, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. Send us an email or comment and let us know what you'd like to hear about. And follow us on our Facebook group. We're going to put the link in the description below. And look forward to having another podcast, Sharif, next week.
All right. See you later,
Take
Peter.
care. Bye bye.